following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Veterans Forum. Today we're coming to you from the Veterans Hospital and Home here in Tilton, New Hampshire. Before I get started though, I'd like to share this with you. It's something that I think every guy and gal, veteran and or friend and family member, should be aware of. When you call this number, 211, anywhere in the state of New Hampshire, you will be put in touch with this kind of a cadre of different types of people and services that are there to help you. If you have any need, any question, or your friends and family think you might need some help, dial that number, 211, and this is it. The only requirement, if you will, you have to have been a veteran for at least 6 months and have an honorable discharge. Beyond that, it's here for you to use, fellas, gals. Do it if you have to. Now, today's program, we're recording history as it was made by the people who made it. Our program is being put on in conjunction with the Library of Congress. They have something called the Veterans History Project that was started back in the year 2000. I joined the club, if you will, back in the year 2007 when I lived in Massachusetts. I'm now here living in New Hampshire. What we're trying to do, I guess, is to have people just unload and talk about what it is that they did, and more important, how it's affected their lives after that. Today, Dave is going to give us some story. Now, he has a very unique situation in that he was in the Army, did some time, then joined the Navy, did some time, then rejoined the Army, did some more time. So we may be ping-ponging back and forth to make sure we're in the right service, in the right time with him, but he's going to lead us through it. Dave, good morning, and we welcome you to the program.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Now, what I'd like you to do is pronounce your name, spell your last name for the record, and tell us where you now live. We know where that is, but we got to go through the bureaucracy.
My name is David Clark. My last name is C-L-A-R-K. I live here at the Veterans Home in Tilton, New Hampshire. I've been here 10 years and 2 months.
Going to make it permanent?
I hope not, sir.
Oh.
I've been trying to get out of here, but things have been happening one after the other. First, I've had 2 strokes, 3 seizures. Now I've got bad feet, and I got bone marrow problems, which is causing me to lose a lot of weight and getting thinner. But I'm trying to fight it back with more food.
Okay.
And I love the food.
Obviously, how is the food here?
It's not Mama's food.
I know, but it keeps you happy and healthy.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they keep us happy, they keep us healthy, and you know, we can ask for a sandwich in the middle of the night. They will give us a sandwich.
Is it a good place to spend some time?
I've been here long enough to enjoy it very much.
Very good. Okay, now let's go back. What were your overall service dates? When did you start the Army the first time, and when did you leave the Army, Navy, Army?
I was drafted in September the 24th, 4 days before my birthday, 1965. I served in the Army until September 23rd, 1967. At that time, I went to Vietnam. I went to Quang Tri Province. I was transportation unit. I was hauling soldiers and supplies to firefights. Okay. And I I had 10 Marines and supplies in the back of my truck. And my truck got hit by rockets.
Oh, we'll get into that.
I lost all of them. I lost everybody in the back of the truck. All I remember is loading them up, but I never got names or nothing. Faces I still see. So my co-driver and I were the two that were flung out of the truck after we come to a conscience. The Marines had taken us, brought us over, and we joined them in the firefight. And at that time, as we were fighting the VC, suddenly I saw all light. It was light all over the place, and there was pain somewhere, where I did not know. But I could still feel it today. I feel that lightness. And what it was is that I got hit by a rocket or a grenade, fragmentations. It hit me in the stomach, lost 3/4 of my stomach, 2 feet of intestines. And next thing I know, I was being hauled by helicopter to a supply station to be helped. There was 4 Marines that had taken me down the hill who I don't remember. But one day, we were having motorcycle meetings out here at the building out here, pavilion, and there was 4 Marines. One Marine came up to me and he says, Clark, he saw my badge. Clark, were you in the Army? I says, yeah. Transportation, right? I says, yes, sir. He says, you may not remember us, but we remember you. I said, how do you remember me, sir? He says, we're the 4 that took you down the hill.
Beautiful.
Took you down the hill, and one of them lives right here in Northfield. And we brought him into the house itself, and as they were being interviewed in the dining room, everybody was applauding them. They were heroes. They were my heroes.
Amen.
They saved my life.
I don't want to cut you short, but I want to get your last bit in the Army.
Yes.
And we'll go back to that.
Okay. I had served 2 years in the Navy after that. And as in the Navy, I served on the USS Gaynard, the DD-706, as a seaman. I swabbed the decks. I was over the side painting hull numbers. I was sweeping the decks. I was cleaning them. I was on watch. And we went to different places over in overseas, over the Mediterranean, 2 tours over there. And we come back home from a nice warm area, only the ship was wound up with ice, and we had to chip ice before we could get into port. We were stationed in Newport, Rhode Island,
Okay.
and it was mighty cold. And then I didn't like the Navy, so I wanted to stay in full term, 20 years, but I didn't know which branch. But I liked what I was doing in the Army before I got sent to Vietnam. So I went back to the Army.
How'd you work the transfer? Did you just say, I want to go back?
I ended my term.
Oh.
I was on a 2-year term.
Oh, okay, you had a contract.
Yes, 2-year term for the Navy. Once that was over, I immediately went over and signed up for the Army. And I had lost my rank. I was a Spec 4 and went to an E3 into the Navy. When I came back into the Army, I was in E2. But I had to work my way back up to a Spec 4. and I was post commander's driver. And I drove for Colonel Decker, Charles D. Decker. He was the post commander of Fort Holabird in Baltimore. Actually, it was in Dundalk, Maryland, but we all say Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay. And when did that end?
And that ended in 73.
Okay.
And that's when I finished.
In, out, and in again.
Yes.
All right.
In, out. I was out for maybe several months before I could transfer to another service. Then I was out for another 2 months.
Okay.
And then I transferred back to the Army.
Now, that's been a whole life history right there, but let's try
Yes.
something different.
Yes.
I'd like to go back a little bit and find out, like, where and when were you born? Now, and then what was your family life growing up? And did you have any brothers or sisters? And that kind of stuff. So, remember that show, This Is Your Life? You ever heard?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'd like to go along that line, so I'll say, okay, Dave, tell us how you got to be and what's happened since.
Very well.
It's all your show, buddy.
I was born September the 28th, 1945, in Concord, New Hampshire. Right after I was born, we moved to Pennacook. And in Pennacook, we didn't have much of a life. My mother, she was, well, she's passed now, so she was a womanizer. And as kids, young kids, we could see her bringing in men at night. There was holes in the walls, and my older brother would tell us what was going on and everything. And then I have 4 brothers and a sister, but these last 2 years I lost 2 brothers and a sister. I have 1 older brother left. His name is Jim. So there was Jim, me, Johnny, Bobby, and Roseanne. And Roseanne had it worse. She was 6 years old, and she was accused of molesting an older boy. She was accused at 6 years old. So they stuck her in the state hospital in Concord. And as far as us boys were concerned, we lived an awful life with her. With our mom and dad, they didn't get along. My dad was an alcoholic. And I hate to say that because in front of my brother, but he knows more about my brother. He knows that he was an alcoholic. And if he ever sees this, I apologize to you, Jim. And
Jim is your brother or your father?
Jim, he's my older brother.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I lost my dad when he was 59 in 1969. I lost my mom when she was 54 in 1973. And from there, we were taken because we had lice in our hair. Yeah, so the barber called the state. The state took us boys and placed us into St. Peter's Orphanage in Manchester, New Hampshire. I was 6 years old. And from 6 years old till 10, 12 years old, 6 to 9 years old, 10 years old, I'm sorry, 6 to 10 years old, I was in St. Peter's Orphanage. And we were taken out by a family, the Bowadis, from Pittsfield, New Hampshire. And they decided that they weren't going to adopt just one boy unless they could adopt all 4 boys. All 4.
That's the courage.
That is. And plus, they had 2 of their own. And we got along fine. My older brother really got the worst of it because you know how chickens are spooky? We were supposed to take the chickens and supposed to push them downstairs to the bottom floor so they could be taken out and put in those boxes.
Oh, did you live on a farm? Is that what you're saying?
That's what it was, a farm.
That's what I'm trying to find out, yeah.
Yes, sir. It was a farm, and they put in the boxes and loaded them up on trucks. But as we were pushing them downstairs, we were waving our arms and yelling and everything.
Spooking the heck out of
Spooking the heck out of them. My brother didn't know what to do with the dead ones.
Oh.
So he took them and he flung them outside the window from the barn. And of course it was all snow and snowing and snowing and snowing, and didn't worry about it. It was covered up. Nobody's going to see it. Then comes spring.
The mud season.
Oh my God! My dad, well, my foster father, he got the tractor out, and he looked around the barn, and he saw all those chickens. Oh my God! And he said, "Who did this?" And of course, we all jumped up and said, "Jimmy did it! Jimmy did it! Jimmy did it!" We didn't want to get in trouble. But we got Jimmy in trouble so bad that he ran away.
Oh.
Yeah, oh yeah, he ran away, but they found him about 5 miles away, hiding in another barn. And they picked him up and they brought him back home, and he ran away again. So they decided, what the heck, they're going to move him to another place. So we stayed with the Bowatis while he moved to, it was Loudon Ridge and Loudon, which wasn't too far from Pittsfield.
What was that, a new home?
It was a new home, a new farm. And those kids there, they really wrecked the heck out of him because they got him just to do all the farm work, while the older boys of theirs just stood around and says, "Look, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, or we're going to beat you up." And normally, poor Jim, he got beat up.
Oh.
And
How long did that last before they found out about it?
well, they told the state, but he ran away from there. They couldn't find him. They couldn't find him for a long, long time and when they did find him, they moved him to another foster home here in Northfield, to the Glotties. They were the Glotties. They were another home on Sargent Street in Northfield. Now, Jim didn't get along with the older Jim, their Jim. So when we got there and moved in with them, Jim was ready to take off again. And I said, "No, Jim, you're going to leave me alone here. Do not go." He said, "Yeah, I can't take it. I can't take it."
Why couldn't he? Was he being abused again?
He was being abused, yeah, because he was the next to the older brother, and the older brother, which was theirs, their Jim, and their Phyllis, was their. They didn't like us calling their family Mom and Dad.
Okay.
So every time we called them Mom and Dad, we got the beat. They beat the heck out of us. Jim said, "No, this is it."
Could you not talk to the parents and
If we talked to the state, it would get back to the family, and we get beat again.
Okay, don't go there.
No, so I hated that situation until, it wasn't until long time later I found out that Jim had run away and joined the Army. And I'm waiting for the Glotties for him to come back, and he never came back. He never came back, and I was very upset. I was mad at him for leaving me alone here. I didn't want to be there.
Were you at this time though? Were you in any kind of a school system, going to public school?
Yes, we were going to the Tilton Northfield High School, and in my 11th grade, my grades were terrible because I said, "Why do the work? I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to be at another home, another town. So why do anything?" And
Did
I
you
never
graduate
did.
finally? Or did you just...
A long time later.
Okay.
I finished 11th grade, and I was supposed to go back to 11th grade. That would have made me almost 20 years old.
Go back to
on
it from where?
Tilton Northfield High. I would have been going back to the 11th grade, and I was 19 years old at 11th grade, and I didn't want to go back. So, because I was horsing hides, that's was the job I had after I finished 11th grade. I got a job down here, horsing hides, different colors, and your hands would have different colors every night when you went
A
home.
tannery?
It's a tannery.
Oh, okay, I got it, because
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I couldn't understand what it was either, so I figured if I say horsing hides, you would get some idea what I was
That's
doing.
why I asked the question, I
Yeah.
didn't. Okay, we got that straight.
I was coloring hides.
All right, a dyer,
There you go, dyeing them.
okay.
And so I
How
put.
long did that last?
Well, that lasted until I got drafted
Okay,
in September 24th, 1965, 4 days before I turned 20.
okay.
And that's when I went into the
that's when you-
service.
Okay, now the big question,
Yes,
I ask every guy,
yes, sir.
how did you feel the first couple of days after you were in the Army, from when you went from civilian to boot camp, if you will?
I was scared. I was scared,
How did you
petrified.
feel? What, did you feel any relief, or you had a new home, a new challenge, a new start?
In the Army, no. I felt like I was just my mom and dad didn't want me. The orphanage didn't want me. The Glaudis didn't want me. The Bowadis didn't want me. The Martells didn't want me. Nobody wanted me.
The Army
so
did?
I went
Okay.
into the Army,
Okay.
yes. They wanted me. But I didn't want to go through the Army. I didn't. I was scared. I was scared because I don't want to go over the war and get shot. I was afraid I was going to die. That was my feeling.
Okay.
I was going to go into the Army at the age of 20. I'm going to get shipped over to Vietnam, and Charlie was there with a bullet with my name on it.
Okay.
And I was really scared, but after a while, I got the feeling comfortable with it because I liked my job.
What was your job? Did you have a specialist?
Transportation. Yes.
What did you do? How did you select for it?
Well, I wasn't. They selected me because of my tests.
Okay.
They selected me as a projectionist.
What does that mean?
That means that I went to classes at Fort Meade, Maryland, and I learned how to run a camera,
Oh, the movies.
run a movie theater, run the carousel, and then I would take them to different classes and set them up for them. And if need be, I would be there to show the film or to show the carousel and explain to them what is on the film, what the film is all about. And most of them are shown for people who were going to Vietnam. And
Okay, 'cause we know the services have all kinds of movies and introductions, that kind of stuff.
and I've still got my license, but it's no good.
Well, at least you had something
Yes.
for it. Okay. Now, how long did that last?
Well, that lasted,
What did it lead to?
that led to the end of 67. That ended 67 when they did go to Vietnam as a projectionist. And
Now,
then-
in addition to projection, did you have
Yeah.
any training with respect to combat, shooting
Yes.
different kinds of guns and
Yes,
ammunition?
we had
How
the-
did you do that?
I had to go through the regular basic training.
Okay.
And regular basic training is, I got a picture of me doing a push-up. Skinny old me trying to push-up.
Okay.
And it didn't make sense. I said, why do they want me? They should have gotten somebody else to do it. And so after that, I decided they were going to send me to Vietnam. And that's when I got hit. And then after that, after I got hit, I didn't want to get out. I decided.
You've just taken a big chunk out of it. When you went from here to Nam, how and when did you go? What mode of transportation?
I was in transportation. I used a deuce and a half.
I'm saying, how did you get from the States
Oh, I flew.
over to Nam?
I flew. I was flown out of Fort Meade, Maryland.
Oh, was that MATS or commercial?
Mad.
Okay.
Mass. Yeah. So they took us and put us on the plane and sent us over, and we landed in Vietnam. And
Where in Nam?
I was down in Saigon.
Okay.
And then by the time I finished up, I was up in Quang Tri Province, which was on this side of the border. Border of South and North Vietnam.
Okay.
That
We
was
don't
right
know
on
the
the
geography.
line.
You've got to tell us. Okay.
Yeah, that was right on the border of North and South Vietnam, which was right just off the border, and that's where most of the fighting started. And at the beginning of Tet, that's where they all came down from. They wiped us right out. They wiped us right down the line, everybody on the line, until they got all the way down to Saigon. And then they came down the trails. And
The Ho
then
Chi Minh Trail.
The Ho Chi Minh Trail. And then they all got, and they attacked Saigon. My brother was in Saigon.
Oh, your brother Jim?
My brother
You ever
Jim.
get together with him?
Yeah. Well, I didn't get together with him because I was too far north.
Oh, but I just had to ask.
Yeah, I couldn't get together with him. And but he did. He met this woman. She was a lieutenant nurse. And he was a Spec 5. And I swear to God that she forced him to marry her.
Oh.
Ordered him because she had the rank.
Okay, we don't go there, okay?
But that was great.
No,
That
I got
was
a question in my
good.
mind though right now. When did you start being a projectionist and beginning, and when you went into the transportation, how did that swap work?
Well, I was at Fort Holabird. Fort Holabird,
Which is where?
which is in Dundalk, Maryland.
Okay.
And as I was a projectionist there, I did all the projectionist work, and then they had an opening for transportation. So they asked me if I would like to take a 10-day leave, come back, and take
reassigned?
courses, reassign me to the transportation unit.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I took a 10-day leave, came home, met my girlfriend who was getting married to my best friend.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah,
John, huh?
yep. And she won't talk to me again because she says, I never wrote to her enough.
Oh.
So maybe that was my problem. I didn't write enough. I guess that's why I took up writing now, because I didn't write enough then.
Okay, but it's kind of late sometimes.
Yes, it is. But
Okay, now you're back in the transportation. What training did you have to do that? As far as what vehicles could you drive? What were you trained to do, and how that kind of stuff?
yeah, I was in transportation, and they gave me a course. It was a 7-day course on the transport, which was the Jeep, the M151A1.
What is that?
And that's the Jeep that has a round roof. And that's the old World War II Jeeps. And back then you learned what is the traveling course on a Jeep. How to change a tire without a jack, which you take a big rock or stone, put it under the rear axle, and you dig underneath the flat tire.
Oh,
And then
it worked.
it works.
It worked.
You
That-
take
okay,
it off,
thank you. I
put the
learned
new one on.
something. If I ever know
Yeah.
a Jeep again, which I never was going to
But
do.
well, even if you have a vehicle,
I know, makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, just put something under the axle.
Don't jack it up, just put the ground down.
Right.
All right.
And you just dig
And what
under
other
it.
vehicles? Jeeps?
I took
4x?
Jeeps, I took 4x4s,
Okay.
I took 2x4s, and the staking platforms. And I took especially I like the 2x4s because they had the covering on the back of the truck, and that's where you have all your people and your
Supplies, whatever it's on the
supplies
cover,
that you were going to take with you. I loved that truck. I called it the North Star because it was the name I gave my first wife. The
North
North Star,
Always
because
permanent.
always guiding me.
That's good. That was a compliment. Did she appreciate that fact? Did you ever tell
Yeah,
her?
she did. She knows. And I always put that on my back flap on there. And I've never seen that truck since. It's probably no more anymore. I mean, that was that was 65 that they had those Jeeps and those trucks. And do you know that Fort Holabird was the original place where they trained and operated the Jeep? They build the Jeep, they take it down to Fort Holabird, and they put it through all these phases on the tracks and everything. And that's something I didn't know until I got there.
Oh, yeah, they check everything out of
Oh, boy.
to one to make sure everything they
Yeah.
know what to do, and more important, how you can handle it and what it'll do for you.
Yeah, because while they're going down the trail, they cut half the trail off. So you have to make sure you're in the right position, and then they cut this half off, and you don't know because there's a lot of bush on both sides, even
You're
where
talking
they cut off.
about Ho Chi.
Like a Ho Chi Minh Trail, yeah. And you're traveling the Jeep down there, and you don't know where it's cut off, because if you go off that, you're just going to tip the Jeep. Yes.
A long way down.
Well, not for this case.
Okay. Yeah.
Not for the
At
training.
least you're off the road and you're in
Right.
trouble.
They'll take you off. It'll take you off the road, and you won't get your license.
Now, this is the first time you're in the Army. Now, you remember earlier we were talking about how you were going north someplace and you had a load of gyrenes and back and so forth.
Yes.
You want to clarify that a little bit and tell us if you can, I guess.
Yes, I was in the transportation unit when I was shipped over to Vietnam. And like I said, I took the flight out, landed in Saigon. That's where they gave us what we were going to do. Were we going to go into the boat unit, or we were going to go down here as infantry and follow the trails?
Is that like a repo depot?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we were going to get into the trucks, and we're going to make sure they're updated and they're up to par so that it will take the road.
Well, what did you have to do that? A checklist or something?
Well, they didn't give us a checklist. They
How are
gave
you
us
supposed to
that
know?
back at Vietnam. They gave us that back in training. So you're supposed to remember from your training what you're supposed to
Okay.
check.
Did you?
Your oil, yeah. You
Oil,
check your
gas
oil,
pressure, and all
gas
that stuff.
pressure, tire pressure, and inside.
Spare was also included.
everything,
Check
yeah.
the spare.
And we had to spare.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we all had a long trail of transportation, a long line of trucks
Okay, a convoy.
heading north.
Okay.
And
Going
they
from
would,
where to where? Do you remember?
well, I was heading up to Quang Tri, which is way up north,
Okay.
just south of
They
the
were still
border.
under fire?
And they were going different areas. They would take off the long line. Trucks may be in front of me, and they'd be taking off another trail. And another trucks in front of me or in back of me would be taking off on another trail. I would continue on my trail until I got to where I'm supposed to be.
Now, was somebody leading that convoy?
Yes.
To tell you where? Okay, there was a true carrier guy.
There was a true carrier, but he was not going to where I was going. He was going to a different. He was heading out to oh geez. Yeah, I can't think of it, but it's not too far from
He and you were
Quantry.
parting ways.
Yeah.
Okay, and you kept going north.
And I kept going north until I got hit.
Is that when you came under fire?
Yes.
Can you go through that again, if you will?
As I was traveling, I had 10 Marines in my truck, and I had supplies. And as I was approaching Quang Tri Province, my truck got hit by a rocket. I lost everybody in the back. My real driver, next driver, and I were the only ones that survived it. But we both wound up leading to join the Marines. They came down and got us. And they helped us, led us to where we were going to position ourselves
You
to
became
fight.
part of their squad then, if you will.
I became a Marine.
Okay. So now you got another one you can take boot camp with.
Yeah, there you go, right. Yeah, and then I was firing along with the Marines as the Viet Cong and VC, which is the Viet Cong. And then they had the guerrillas, the Vietnam guerrillas. They're all the same, except you had the guerrillas, which were just nothing but plain people that had no training whatsoever. They just grabbed a gun and went out there and trying to protect their country. They protect their country like we're trying to protect the South. But we lost the South. Well, we didn't lose the South because we were out of Vietnam before they lost the South. And as I was heading towards firing, I saw a white light, very bright white light. And I recall that white light, and I have that in my book. I have 2 books written, and they're both based on what I am telling you now. My whole life story using different characters and names of change of towns. Well, there's really no innocent to protect, really, because I think we're all guilty for something. But the 2 books I had written showed that I was taken down by 4 Marines who I finally met here at the motorcycle weekend. And they came here.
How recently was that? Just this past year?
No, that was about 5 years ago.
Oh, okay, because time has a way of getting away.
Yes, 5 years ago we had that, and that's when the Marines came up to me and they recognized the name.
Were you just sitting out there in the pavilion, or were you walking around doing
I
what?
was walking around the pavilion because I'm afraid of motorcycles, because that goes back to my mom. Now, as I once said, my mom was
A biker girl?
well, she wasn't a biker girl, but she loved a man who had a motorcycle. And every time I heard that motorcycle, my mom would look at us and said, "You ever tell your dad I'm going to have him come in and cut off your toes?"
Oh,
And I was 5 years old at the time.
so you didn't do
4
much
and 5.
talking. Okay.
And it scared me. Every time I heard that motorcycle, I ran through the dining room, I ran through the kitchen, ran throughout the back where they keep the smelly clothes washer, and out the back door. The next thing you know, she said she's going to have them cut off my toes.
Oh.
And I have never got to appreciate the motorcycle. I feared them. I still do. So all the Marines would get on both sides of me, so that the motorcycles were going up and down. And I'm trying to get across, so the Marines would get on both sides of me to protect me as I try to get over into the pavilion. So
Anyway, so you and they got together and...
yes, and they came in here and they gotten to know the home, and the home gotten to know those four. And it was nice to meet them.
Okay. Now, when you were hit and coming back, how did you get treated as far as your body and your...
I really don't know how I was treated. I was still out when the Marines took me down.
You finally did get to some hospital, so that...
I got to a hospital, and that's when I woke up, and I was in a hospital. And that hospital was over in, back in Washington.
The state of Washington?
Seattle, Washington.
Okay, right on the Sound.
Yep. I was in a hospital there for several months. Then they transferred me to the hospital over in Fort Meade. I went to Fort Meade.
Where was
that? Was Fort Meade, Maryland.
Okay.
That was a cruddy hospital. That was supposed to be one of the finest hospitals we ever had. But, I mean, you could see the guys going down the hall in their wheelchairs, and they're doing wheelies, and they're spinning around, and these are sick people. These are guys that have no legs.
But they had a leg off the
They had,
somehow.
they had something in them that kept them alive.
Yeah.
And I says, you know, this place looks dirty and dingy, but you can do whatever you want. And I'm not used to being in an area where I can do whatever I wanted to do.
How long you were there before you got...
I was there for 6 months.
Okay, and then what? Come back home?
Not yet.
Oh.
From there, I went to Fort... oh, God, I forget that one anyways. Then I came back to down to Manchester. I came to Manchester to
At the VA hospital?
Yes, and I was in and out of there for years and years. You see, I was married in '67, and from '67. So actually, I was in there from when I got injured in '73. '73, I got injured. No, I'm sorry. I was injured in '68. I was injured, and by '70, I was feeling okay. That I wanted to get out of the hospital. I wanted to do something.
Okay.
So they said, well, we can send you to Fort Holabird. You've been there. You like that. We'll send you there as post commander. You're the driver. I said, well, yeah, that sounds good. So I'll be driving a sedan, as well as I was motor pool operator. I was in charge of all the trucks and the vehicles that came back from their destination. They had to clean their vehicle and gas it up and oil it up,
Okay,
and I checked it.
Okay.
I would check it.
At this juncture, did it give you another stripe or two?
Yes, that's when they gave me my Spec 4. So I went from an E3 to Spec 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
so,
when did you leave the Army the first time?
I left
We
the
got a
Army
little
the
bit of time,
first
but I'm
time.
telling you, you got 2 more services we got to cover.
Yeah, I left the Army the first time. That's when I got injured. That was in 68, 67. I was served there from 65 to 67.
Okay.
That was my 2 years of service. That's when I got out.
Then when did you join the Navy? How long
joined
ago did you join the
I
Navy?
joined the Navy right afterwards, about 5 months later. I joined the Navy, and I didn't like it. So 2 years service, I got out of there.
Okay, but you
I-
had a couple of good trips to the Mediterranean.
Oh, I had some great trips to Mediterranean. But when I signed up for the Navy, I signed up for CB, not CN. CN. I wanted a CB or construction man. And those two are the ones I want. So instead of a CB or a CN, they put SN, which is seaman. That's what it is. SN means seaman.
Okay.
So as a seaman, you're a swabby.
For 2
You're
years?
you're the lowest. You're the lowest of anybody on the ship. You
So you got
swab.
demoted when you came back in there.
I got demoted. I lost 1 rank.
Did
Yes.
they tell you that's going to happen?
No. They didn't tell me until after I was in.
I got this signed off.
They
You
signed me
had-
off. I said, hey, I'm a Spec 4. In the Army, don't I get my E4 in
This
the
ain't
Navy?
The Army, Mr. Jones.
No, they say you don't get your E4 in the Navy. Every time you transfer, you lose a rank.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
okay. Then, how
Oh.
long? Well, you said 2 years. Then,
Yeah.
when you 2 years was up, why did you then go back in the Army? You're still looking for
Well,
a career?
like I said, I wanted to continue. I wanted to be a 20-year man.
All right.
And I found out I did not want to spend it in the Navy. So I said, I'll go back to the Army because I enjoyed transportation. I enjoyed what I was doing as a projectionist while I was in the Army.
What did you come back as this time?
I came back as an E2.
No, but I mean, what was your job coming back?
My job was working the motor pool.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
They
so
give you back your stripes?
no, not right off.
Oh, God.
Not right off. No, I had to earn that. It was several years. I worked on the vehicles, and then after that, no, before that, I was working as post commander's driver, and that's when
That's pushy duty back.
that was pushy duty, and I liked it. And I drove wherever I went. Wherever I drove Vice President Spiro to Agnew.
Tell us about that you told me before.
Oh yeah, well,
This is great, folks. Listen to this.
I was I drove my post commander, Colonel Charles D. Decker, and my vice president, which is I forget his first
Agnew?
name. No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
No, I drove my Decker. And I drove him to the Pentagon. And I was told to sit outside the office to wait. So as I was sitting in the office, in that office waiting for the post commander to come back out, I saw the Bible. I picked it up and I just started reading through it. And I came to Luke, and I remember Luke. I said, well, I've read that one already, so I liked Isaiah. So I went to Isaiah. You read Isaiah and you've read the whole Bible. So I started reading Isaiah, and then he came out and he says,
He who?
the first it was the post commander that came out of the door, and then the vice president, Spiro T. Agnew. He came out, and as the two were talking, he glanced over at me, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, Spiro T. Agnew looked at me and he said, "Specialist." I stood up. I said, yes, sir. He says, do you believe in the Bible? I says, yes, sir. He says, you read it? I said, I read it every time I get a chance. So anyways, I started to read the Bible, Isaiah, and he looked at me and he says, specialist, he says, you take that Bible with you. You can have it. And when you come back next time, whenever that is, I'm going to ask you questions on it. I said, yes, sir, I will. So I took the Bible and we went back to Fort Holabird, and of course I made a big mistake by telling everybody in there I got the Bible that the Spiritual Agnew gave me. And of course they just, nah, yeah, so big deal and all that. So it was about a little over a month later, I took Vice President, no, I took Colonel Decker again, along with Vice Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Cathcart, and we took him to the Pentagon. And I was told to sit in the same place. Well, he went in there and talked and talked and talked, and I sat down and I read the whole chapter of Isaiah. And all of a sudden, Spiritual Agnew comes out alone. He looks over at me and he says, you still reading it? I said, yes, sir, I am. He says, what are you reading? I said, Isaiah, sir. He said, oh, that's a good chapter. You're going to get a lot out of that. So I said, yes, sir. So suddenly he says, you take that Bible and you enjoy it, and it will follow you for the rest of your life. So I said, thank you very much, sir, because I didn't have a Bible at the time. So I took it back to the barracks at Fort Holabird, and I was so proud of it. And told him again that he gave it to me. And when I opened it up to the third page, I said, oh my God. I said, it reads, to Spiro, love, mother. I said, I can't keep this Bible. People heard me say that. So I put it in my locker, my wall locker, and I left and I went over to the post commander and saluted to him, and I said, sir, I must speak to you. And he asked me into his office, and I said, sir, he says, the Bible that Vice President Spiritual Agnew gave me, it was given to him by his mother. I said, I can't keep it. He said, well, you tell him that the next time you meet him. I said, yes, sir, I will. So anyways, I went to the wall locker maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks later. The Bible was missing. It was gone. I couldn't find it. I said, oh my God, I says, I've lost the Bible. Or somebody got it. And so I was afraid to go and tell Lieutenant Spiritual Agnew about it. My heart just filled right up. It's worse than getting shot. I was afraid. I was afraid everything that came back from the past, all that anger and the pain, it filled me to, I didn't know what to do. I was really feared. He's vice president. So anyways, I told the post commander, and he says, you know, it's your call, sir. He said, it's your call. If you want to tell them, you tell them. If you don't have to. But just pretend that you got it. I said, I can't do that, sir. He said, it's your call. So anyways, we got to the Pentagon. I saw the Spiro T. Agnew right off the bat. He came to me and he says, "How's the Bible, specialist?" I says, "The Bible is really good reading. And you're right, it keeps me and follows me wherever I go." I said, "But sir, it's about your Bible." He says, "Yeah, I know. My mother's name's in it to me." He says, "Like I said, I gave it to you to keep, didn't I?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Then that's what I want you to do. I want you to keep it." I said, "But sir, no buts about it." I was going to tell him about I don't have it.
Did he cut you off?
He cut me off. He never gave me the opportunity to tell him that. And there I am, full of this despair. I don't know how to empty it. I was ready to scream. But he says, "Specialist, you do what you do with it." He says, "But as far as I'm concerned, it's all yours.
Oh, good.
And the Lord will be with you no matter what you do." And you know, he's been with me ever since.
Amen, brother.
Since I've been here, I've written 2 books. I've become a minister. I'm an ordained minister as of 2 years ago. March the 3rd, I've been ordained. I am the chaplain for the resident council meeting. If any of the residents wish to talk to me, they can, but
You're always available then.
I'm available. But they have a pastor here that gets paid for it. And I can't step on his toes and take his job away from him.
That's not good. Oh.
I can't do that.
All right.
But like I said, if they ask me questions, I will help them. And if they're sick, if they ask for me, I'll be there for them.
Okay.
And that's what I'm waiting for.
Have you had that opportunity?
I have not yet, sir.
Oh.
But I do talk anyways about it whenever we sit down. I start talking about it. And if they follow me through, they follow me through.
Okay. Now, talking about talking, I'd like to ask you one silly question, but it's very important, I think. With all that you've seen and done in 2 or 3 different branches of serving the country and so forth, and all that experience, do you feel that that has had an impact, positive or negative, on your life since then?
It has given me a positive. I felt I'm wanted, I'm needed. The Army needed me, even if it was to kill somebody. They needed me.
Okay, so you did
They
have a
needed
family.
me as a truck driver. They needed me as a post commander's driver. They needed me to know where I stand with the Bible.
Okay.
And it made me a stronger Christian. And being here made it even twice as strong.
Okay. You're well taken care of now.
I am well taken care of. I have my home.
Press the flesh, as they say, left hand.
God bless
Thank
you,
you
sir.
for your service and your life. And stay healthy, huh?
And you also, sir.
Amen.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you for this time.
Amen.
Amen.
That's a wrap, folks. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can't unenjoy something like that. But again, this is one fellow's little story about how he lived, what his life was like. But more important, he was sharing that with us. And if you watched his face and our faces as they talk, you know it's right where they live. Again, as a reminder, if you can and will, get a hold of me. Name is Bob Stevens. You'll hear about it a lot, I hope. We'll do all we can to make you happy and satisfied. But most important, I've found and been told by many guys that this is perhaps one of the most important but priceless legacies you can leave your family. It's you telling what you did and how it affected you. Signing off right now saying thank you, come and see us soon. Goodbye.